Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Malaysians on the Move podcast. On today's episode, my guest is Talitha, who was my high school classmate. The last time we spoke was at least more than a decade ago. Talitha is currently based in Singapore. I'm really excited to learn more about what you've been up to all these years. So, welcome, Talitha.
Thanks so much, Yoshnee. Wow, a decade. That's going to be a very long catch up, Yoshnee.
Yeah, that's right. So you were my classmate in Asunta Secondary School. And I obviously want to know what you've been up to since then. But why don't you first introduce yourself and maybe share where in Malaysia you grew up? How was high school for you?
Okay, yep, can do. So I was born in Kuala Lumpur, KL, in Malaysia. But I grew up mainly in PJ, Petaling Jaya. So went to high school in Asunta. And then after Asunta, I did South Australian matriculation. I did a bit of A levels, but then a scholarship opportunity came along and I switched to South Australian matriculation. I did that with Taylor's College in Subang Jaya. And then after my South Australian matriculation, I went to read law in Australia. I read law in Australian National University in Canberra. Growing up, I think was a little bit, in a sense, stressful because I knew that I had to prioritize my studies. So I think a lot of my high school life, I went to school, did my extracurricular activities, and then I did a bit of tuition as well so that I could make sure I keep my grades up. Because at that point in time in high school, I think my goal was to at the very least try to earn a scholarship to try to study abroad.
Wow. Yeah, that's right. I remember you were discipline officer, right? For prefects.
Yes, I was.
Yes, you were very studious, definitely, and you got the best grades in class. Yeah, so I guess you did end up getting a scholarship, and it was very well deserved.
Oh, thank you so much. And actually, for the listeners, Yoshnee also did very well in her studies. I was in very good, esteemed company even back in school.
Yeah, yes, it was. I had some strengths like in math and science, but not history, geography. All those were not really my best. Okay, so you went to Australia. You were studying law, and was that something that you really wanted to study, or
Mm,
you just kind of fell into it?
I wouldn't say I fell into it, but it was really by a process of elimination. Yeah, so when we were 17, we were in Form 5 or Secondary 5. I think I was just thinking about what would be the best option going forward. So I knew I didn't want to do medicine at that point in time because medicine felt like a very long journey. Didn't want to do engineering because I think I learned that I didn't have that much of a gifting in the sciences after a while. Didn't want to do accounting. Also didn't think that was my strength. So I ended up with law because I thought that would give me the most options if I did not end up being a lawyer. Yeah, and I thought it was at that point in time a good degree to have.
So, when you were in Australia studying law, how was it like for you? Was it a very challenging course? Did you breeze through it?
Oh, definitely. I cannot say that I breezed through law school. It was definitely challenging because it was a very different method of teaching once you enter uni. So I think in Malaysia, generally, I mean, I'm sure some people have a different experience. Generally, I think the education system encourages you to memorize things and then produce answers in an examination. A lot of the knowledge is spoon fed to you by your teachers. But when you enter university, I think at least in Australia and in ANU, ANU encourages you to think a little bit more by yourself. So it involved quite a bit of self studying, self initiative. So the change in education style, I found that challenging at the beginning. But eventually, I mean, I did not get the best grades at law school, but I think law was a very interesting and challenging subject as I went through the course. I really did enjoy it. It was very intellectually stimulating. But I wish that I still hold this opinion. I wish that I did it when I was a little bit older and more mature, because I think I would have appreciated my law studies a lot more.
Yeah, that was a very well rounded answer. I can really relate to what you said about the education system that we had was very like memorize and regurgitate. The way I like to look at it is it's very theoretical. So you kind of just need to know the theory.
Mm,
But I think in the overseas education that you and I received,
mm.
it was very application based. So you had to think on how to apply the theory.
Yeah, and I thought that was the most fun bit actually.
Same.
In ANU, most of my law courses were assignment based, and the assignments would involve problem solving. So they give you a case study, and then you basically apply the law to that case study to solve the problem, the legal problem, and or legal research. So I found that I enjoyed the case studies more.
That makes sense. Yeah. So after law school or after finishing law in Australia, what did you do after?
So at that point in time, I had family members who encouraged me to try to stay on in Australia after law school. So I did consider that option, but I think what happened was, so after you graduate from your university studies in Australia, one could apply for this visa called a temporary graduate visa, which allows you to stay about 1.5 to 2 years to seek employment in Australia, and that would be a pathway to Australian permanent residency. I actually could not even apply for that temporary graduate visa because I was a foreign government sponsored student. So at that point in time, I was studying in Australia on a Malaysian scholarship. So that option was not open to me at all. So, okay, back to Malaysia I went. So I went back to Malaysia. And then at the same time, when I was in Malaysia, I was trying to get myself qualified to become a solicitor in Australia. At the same time, working at a law firm in Malaysia. So I was actually a paralegal slash long term intern doing legal work at a law firm. And eventually, since I was in Malaysia, I decided, okay, might as well just do the bar. But long story short, did the bar in Malaysia as well, got qualified, then became a lawyer in Malaysia.
Very awesome. And what kind of law do you practice or did you practice in Malaysia at the time?
After I got called to the Malaysian bar, I practiced for about 5 to 6 years. So I did commercial. So my firm actually, that would be a more accurate representation. My firm at that time did still doing commercial litigation, commercial and civil litigation. So I was a litigator, which meant that I'm a lawyer that went to court, did court work.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And after you returned to Malaysia, how was it like to come back? Were you happy to be back or were you kind of hopeful to someday return to Australia after serving the scholarship terms? Like in that moment, like take me back to you at that moment where you were working in Malaysia and how you felt.
Okay, so when I first returned to Malaysia, just to keep this a little bit light, it hit me how humid Malaysia is because it's a lot drier in Australia. So the first thing that welcomed me when I returned to Malaysia was the humidity. And then I had to get used to Malaysia again because I studied law in Australia for 4 years. So kind of got used to how the Aussies do their thing in Australia. Coming home to Malaysia, it was getting assimilated again back to a culture which I left for 4 years. So that would include the traffic jams, the work culture in Malaysia. I'm not sure if it's the same in the States, but I think the work culture in Malaysia or generally Asia tends to be a little bit more stressful because everyone works very, very hard and the pace is a lot quicker. To put it lightly, it is a lot quicker. So it was trying to get used to that again.
Did you feel like you had a good work life balance or you were just really grinding it? You were working all day, all night, and going to sleep and then rinse and repeat.
Yeah, so at that point in time, I remember because, okay, so I was with the law firm for a good 8 years. So I started off as an intern slash paralegal, right? Then I got qualified, got retained as a legal associate in the firm. So I spent a good 8 years with the firm. And in those 8 years, because I remember at that point in time, I was young, just came out of university, naive, wanted to give it my best, not just 100%, but as much as I could give. I went above and beyond. All that I think was because I was really hungry to to be good at what I did. So I in a sense, I sacrificed a lot of weekends, a lot of public holidays. I worked almost every day. And I also had a boss that did that. So when you see your boss doing that, you're kind of like, oh, okay, you yourself, you need to like pull your socks up. So I did work most days, pretty long hours. I think lawyers around the world do work quite long hours, especially when you're first starting out. So the days would average at the very least 10-hour days, 10 to 12-hour days. And that's on like the minimum side of the scale. Did that every day, but eventually learned that, oh, actually, that's not very sustainable. I went through a period of burnout without realizing I was burning out. Yeah.
Yeah, I was literally about to say that you probably experienced burnout. There's just a lot of time to spend working. And then I think after a while, you can just really feel like, oh my God, all these years went by.
Yeah.
What have I been doing? Is that the reason why you decided to potentially look for other opportunities? Maybe now is a good segue to how you got your new role in Singapore and how has that been for you?
I think at that point in time, I was a little bit more curious about the world. As a litigator, I focused, at least for the firm that I was working with, a lot of my cases were domestic in nature, meaning we focused only on Malaysian law most of the time. And honestly, as Malaysian qualified lawyers, we're only competent to advise on Malaysian law. So I didn't really get to see the world much. And at that point in time, I just started feeling a little bit more of a desire to, yeah, to just want to experience the world a bit more. And so I was admittedly I was keeping an eye out if there was an opportunity, then I wouldn't mind trying it out. So at that point, I think one day I was just looking through LinkedIn and I saw a post by my senior in university, and her team in Singapore was expanding. So she was working is still working in Deloitte Singapore. She was part of the business tax team, and she was looking for more people to join her team. And her ad touched on someone wanting international exposure, but of course, she did disclose that it was a tax role. So I was like, oh, great. This sounds like it might be up my alley. But up until that point in time, I did not have tax experience. But I decided to just reach out to her anyway and just ask about it. And she explained to me what it was about. And then I mentioned to her that, look, I have no tax experience. And I think what her team was looking for was someone with legal training, because the role had to do with tax advisory. So it was about reading tax legislation rules and applying it to the tax problems that come to them. So I think that was what she was looking for. And she, I guess, did not mind that I didn't have tax experience because I got the role. In a sense, it was a blessing because for someone who didn't have tax experience to be given an opportunity to try it out, I'm just very grateful for that opportunity. And it's a good opportunity for me as well because my mom and my brother are actually in Singapore. So it was, in a sense, reuniting with family.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that part. So, had your mom and brother been in Singapore for quite a bit? When you were in Australia, were they already in Singapore or did they move when you were back in Malaysia?
Yes, so my brother, for context, is a lot older than I am. He actually went over to Singapore on the ASEAN scholarship. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. Yeah, so
I have.
yeah, so he went over on an ASEAN scholarship and he did medicine. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to be a doctor, because there's already a doctor in the family, so I wanted to be different. So he moved over to Singapore quite a long time back. Then before I went over to Australia to read law, my mom moved over to Singapore to live with my brother, and that's also because my mom actually had a stroke a long time back. And because I was going to move from Malaysia to study in Australia, so the arrangement was such that my mom would move over to Singapore for my brother to care for her. So they've been in Singapore for quite a long time. And so for me, usually Chinese New Year is really going to Singapore.
Is your mom doing okay now?
Yeah, so the stroke was quite a massive one. And so she's paralyzed like on the right side of her body. So she is fine. She is like her mental faculties are okay, but she's just getting quite old already, and that's very normal. Like sometimes she's a bit forgetful. I think that's very normal as we grow old. Yeah.
Did the stroke happen when you were in high school?
The stroke happened when I was in primary school actually.
So long before that.
I think I was 9 when it happened.
That must have been tough on you.
I think because I was so young, I don't think I fully appreciated how difficult it is. And I think I have to thank my sister and my brother for that. So my sister also, for context, she's a lot older than I am. So when I was in primary school, she was in university. So that shows how much of a big age gap between us. So I think my sister kind of shouldered a good portion of the responsibility to look after the family at that point in time. Now looking back, I think she was really quite a pillar for the family because she kind of became like the de facto head of the household at that time because my brother was already in Singapore. So she was the one in Malaysia. So she looked after the family at that time.
Yeah, and it paid off because now you're so successful and you got to reunite with your mom and brother in Singapore.
Yeah.
So you must really like that. And I'm assuming that was also part of the motivation for suddenly taking interest in this tax role, although it was not
Mm.
right up your alley, but
Yeah.
at least it was in Singapore. So you were actually standing to gain because you could be closer to your family.
Yeah, exactly. Because my mom is getting older, and I think as we adult, we start to I think appreciate our parents, and in my case, I guess my older siblings as well a little bit more. You appreciate your family relationships a bit more. So I just didn't want to regret anything. So I thought why not give it a shot, and I get to visit my mom a little bit more often as well, compared to going over to Singapore a few times in a year. Now I see her almost every weekend.
Yeah, that's lovely. So, how is your new role and life in Singapore? I'm assuming no more 10 to 12-hour days and you get your weekends.
Initially, when I started, life was, I would say, pretty decent. So I clocked in, I think I get pretty decent 8-hour days when I first started. And I think kudos to the team. I think they were just trying to ease me into the role, knowing that I didn't have the relevant tax background. I did get my weekends off. My weekends are relatively kept for personal things nowadays, which is great. But my team is also getting very busy because it's starting to get quite top heavy. I suspect that I will not enjoy my 8-hour days for too long. But that's okay. It's a good experience with every work that I do. I think I learn a little bit more about tax. I think it's still valuable experience. Mm. Yeah, and in fact, my team right now, the team has hired quite a few Malaysians.
A lot of Malaysians cross over to Singapore because the culture is the same, the weather is the same, the language is pretty much, the same, and the food is the same. We can't forget the food.
Yes, but Malaysian food is better. Haha.
Exactly. Singaporeans will claim that the dish is from Singapore, but we all know.
We all know the truth.
What about your hobbies? So, what do you do on the weekends? You said you reserve it for personal time. Have you been able to connect with other Malaysians in Singapore? Have you met new friends? How have you built a community for yourself?
So actually on weekends, learning from my past errors when I was in legal practice, I have now learned to look after myself a little bit more. So that will also mean carve out some time to do things which I enjoy. So now, I mean, I kind of started this in Malaysia as well, but I've continued it. So now I'm I'm learning Mandarin and Korean. I know I look Chinese, but I actually I'm quite a banana. I don't really know my native tongue. So I've decided, okay, I think I should start living up to my looks. So I've just continued my Mandarin lessons in the hopes that I'll be a little bit more Chinese with every passing lesson. I've also taken up Korean because I've taken a liking to Korean culture. Yes, yes, it will include K-pop, a little bit of K-drama, but I do think a lot of my liking for the Korean culture comes from this YouTube channel called Korean Englishmen. So it's basically about two British men introducing Korean culture to the world, and their videos are actually very heartwarming, and they introduce Korean culture in a way that's so easily accessible and understandable for people who are not Korean, who don't listen or understand the language. So I think it started from there. And then I noticed that I felt that I picked up Korean a little bit more easily. So I thought, okay, why not like just learn it a bit more formally so that, put it to good use. You never know what might come out of it. Yeah, then so that's on Saturday mornings. Then I'll try to go visit my mom on Saturday after that. Have dinner with her and my brother's family. And then on Sunday, usually Sunday mornings, I'll head to church. And then after church, I'll hang out with some church friends. And then maybe badminton in the evening. I think for me, community right now would be, say, my immediate team members at work, so my colleagues, and also my church community on Sundays.
That's awesome. That's really awesome.
Yeah, a lot of the people that I know now in church are Singaporeans, actually, born and bred in Singapore.
That's awesome. So your weekends are very like carved out and you have a lot of
Yeah,
activities, socializing.
yeah. I think it's I'm learning now that yes, it's helpful to have a bit more of a balance.
Yeah. I got to check out that YouTube channel that you just spoke about.
Sure thing.
That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so, with Mandarin specifically, you said you're learning it. How do you go about practicing it? Do you try to speak it with people, with your friends, or with your family?
Yeah, so that's something that I lack. So I think that would explain my very slow and snail-like progress with picking up the language because I haven't really practiced it. I try to practice it when I buy food in Singapore. I try, and I think it's also a matter of confidence because I know I'm not like completely fluent yet. So I think that's also affecting my confidence in volunteering to speak it. Mm.
We can move to the golden question that I like to ask my guests, which is, do you ever see yourself moving back to Malaysia someday?
That is the golden question indeed. And I think this is a very common question that I get asked as well. At this point, I like to keep my options open. No one really knows what will happen in the future. For the moment, I think I'm still curious and exploring about the world. So I'll probably do that a little bit first, but never discounting the possibility of returning to Malaysia. So maybe yes, maybe no. Let's see where life leads. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I like to think of it as well. You just never know. And Malaysia's so great. I mean, just the people, the food. I just feel like the
Yeah,
vibes are
actually,
just
I
like
do think
chill.
Malaysians are very hospitable in Malaysia. Yeah, just generally friendlier. Yeah, friendlier, very welcoming, very warm. There's a people who are very warm people. Yeah.
Yeah, I cannot agree more. So, Talitha, it was so nice to have you on to share your story. And I'm so glad we reconnected because I would really love to keep in touch.
Thanks for reconnecting and having me on. Always lovely to reconnect with old friends. Yeah.
And yeah, do you have any social media or anything you want to plug in? Or
Well, I do have a LinkedIn page. Feel free to connect with me. Yeah.
awesome. All right, Talitha, thanks so much once again. And I will talk to you soon.
Yes, talk again.
That's a wrap, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. See you in the next episode. Bye.